burning orbit. The soft hum of plasma coils filled the air like a lazy insect, the rhythm so familiar that Darren Cole barely noticed it anymore. He sat behind the counter of Cole's Drift Stop, boots up, mug of recycled coffee in hand, staring through the viewport at the black stillness of the void. A battered cargo tug drifted by in the distance, her engines coughing blue light. Another glamorous day in orbit, he muttered, scratching the scar just above his jawline, a keepsake from a knife fight on Foro Station a lifetime ago. The console chimed, and his ancient AI assistant, more personality than processor, sputtered to life. Unscheduled approach vector, Captain, it rasped. Transponder unknown, drive signature, elegant. Darren frowned. Elegant ships don't visit places like this. But the signal approached anyway, slowing into the drift corridor. Then, with a flash of heat and plasma exhaust, a sleek vessel emerged, a silver and burgundy skimmer with sweeping fins that caught starlight like blades. It glided to dock with a precision no autopilot could manage. The airlock cycled. Out stepped a woman who was not, by any definition, human. Burgundy scales shimmered beneath the station lights, shading lighter toward her throat and hands. A long tail flicked once, then curled neatly behind her. Her face, though framed like a human's, held the proud sharpness of a dragon sculpted into humanoid form, ridged brow, gleaming gold eyes, lips curved in a faint, confident line. She wore a travel jacket that looked more couture than cargo-rated and held a datapad like a weapon. Darren blinked. Well, that's new. Welcome to the Drift Stop. How can I require refueling, she said crisply, voice melodic but commanding. I believe your facility carries grade 7 hydrogen slush compatible with an Arcturian pulse drive? He stared at her for a beat. You believe right. You'll also need to pay before I pump. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if insulted by the notion that anyone would question her solvency. Naturally. However, she said, glancing aside, my credit transfer protocols are currently unavailable. Unavailable. Darren took a sip of his coffee. That's a polite way of saying broke. I am not broke, she said, tail flicking. Simply, unable to access my family's treasury for the moment. Bureaucratic nonsense. He smirked. Happens to the best of us. You will, of course, extend a temporary credit. He coughed. Will I? She blinked, genuinely confused. Is that not customary? Not out here, lady. You want fuel, you pay up front. I'm not in the habit of giving charity to strangers in designer boots. Her head tilted, confused. I am not wearing boots. These are adaptive traction sheaths. Yeah, he said, deadpan. Those. There was a pause, long, uncomfortable, and oddly charming. She seemed to weigh her pride against practicality, then inhaled, scales shifting subtly. Human, she said at last, what is your name? Darren Cole. Darren Cole, she repeated, her accent curling around the words like smoke. If you provide the fuel, I will ensure repayment. You have my honor. He grinned. Honor doesn't buy hydrogen. Then, what does? Credits. Her eyes narrowed. You are deliberately being difficult. I get bored easily. The exchange went on for another 5 minutes, her dignity fraying, his amusement growing until, against all sense, Darren sighed and leaned back in his chair. Fine, he said. You get your fuel. But if I don't see those credits within a week, I'm selling that shiny ship of yours for scrap. Agreed. She inclined her head, relief flickering across her regal features. You have my gratitude, Darren Cole. He chuckled. Yeah, well, let's hope your gratitude's worth something. 3 standard days later, Darren nearly dropped his wrench when his console pinged. Incoming transfer, for million credits. Source, Lasara Vare Holdings. He stared, then stared harder. Elegant drive signature, he muttered. Yeah, no kidding. The AI hummed. Would you like to initiate celebration protocol? He snorted. Nah, I'm thinking investigation protocol. Because curiosity, as his old recon sergeant used to say, was a habit that got people killed or made them very rich. And Darren Cole was already rich. But this was something else entirely. He spent the next few nights rewatching her docking logs, every flick of her tail, and every cutting remark playing in his mind. She'd been impossible, imperious, and stunning. He hadn't seen confidence like that since he'd left the Corps. Finally, with a sigh, he pulled up the transaction routing code. The origin point glowed in neat alphanumeric text. Dravith Prime, Central Treasury Node, Vare Estate. Vare, he murmured. Figures. The name alone screamed money. Money, power, and trouble. He leaned back, smirk tugging his lip. Guess it's time for a vacation. Dravith Prime filled the viewport like a crimson gem, its atmosphere swirling in molten hues of gold and scarlet. The planet's vast city continents shimmered with auric light, bridges of plasma connecting sky spires so tall they pierced the clouds. Darren guided his shuttle through the landing vector, the autopilot protesting under his manual overrides. Relax, he muttered. I've jumped into burning orbits at Mach 10. I can handle a fancy landing pattern. The AI co-pilot disagreed with a loud beep. Your hubris is statistically incompatible with survival. Noted. He killed the autopilot entirely and took the descent by hand. The shuttle touched down on a floating pad of glass-like alloy, its surface alive with faint, pulsing runes. As the engines powered down, he caught sight of the locals' tall, scaled figures in formal garments that shimmered like molten silk. They moved with effortless grace, wings folded tight, tails glinting under the sun. Darren adjusted his jacket and stepped out into the open air. Instantly, the heat hit him, dry, perfumed, faintly metallic. Two Draconians at the pad approached, their faces severe. State your business, one said. His voice rolled like thunder. Visiting, Darren replied, offering a smile that had gotten him out of worse places. A friend. Lasara Vare. The guard's expression did not change, but his tail twitched once. You're human. Been that way all my life. Few humans are permitted within Vare territory. Guess I'll be the first. He stepped forward, ignoring the way both guards stiffened. Wanna call ahead? She owes me a thank you drink. They didn't like that. One muttered something in Draconian, the other sighed heavily, and finally they gestured toward a sleek transport skimmer waiting at the edge of the pad. Inside, the cabin smelled of ozone and citrus. As the craft lifted, Darren watched Dravitha's cityscape flow below, towering crystalline spires, molten rivers winding through urban valleys, and platforms carrying markets in the sky. He grinned despite himself. Nice place to be rich. Correction, the AI whispered through his earpiece, a nice place to appear rich. Yeah, he murmured. Let's not tell them the station junkie they met is a billionaire with a wrench collection. The skimmer landed at the base of a grand estate carved into a cliff of glowing stone. Waterfalls of liquid light cascaded from balconies hundreds of meters above. As the door opened, Darren was greeted by a familiar voice. Darren Cole. She stood on the steps, framed by the radiance of her homeworld, wearing a flowing ensemble of pale gold and burgundy that accentuated the sleek contours of her form. Her eyes, bright as molten suns, widened slightly. How did you find me? Followed the money trail, he said, walking up the steps with a grin. Which, by the way, was a lot of zeros for a fuel loan. She exhaled sharply, an almost embarrassed sound. I repaid what was owed. With compound interest, apparently. It seemed appropriate. He tilted his head. You trying to scare me off or impress me? Lasara hesitated. Humans respond to gestures of appreciation, yes? Usually involves fewer digits, but sure. Her lips quirked, a tiny, uncertain smile. Then I am glad it pleased you. Before he could answer, the massive doors behind her swung open. A towering Draconian male stepped out, scales darker than hers, eyes glowing with golden fire. Lasara, he said, his voice cold enough to frost plasma. Explain why a human stands at my gates. Father, she began, but Darren stepped forward before she could. Sir, name's Darren Cole. I came to thank your daughter for paying her debts, fastest transaction I've ever seen. Thought I'd buy her dinner. The elder's eyes narrowed. Dinner. Yeah, Food, conversation, mutual awkwardness. Maybe some light cultural misunderstanding if things go well. Lasara coughed into her hand. He swore she was suppressing laughter. Her father, unfortunately, was not amused. You presume much, human. Probably, Darren said easily. But it worked for me so far. The old draconian studied him in silence. Finally, he turned to his daughter. He will not remain long. I'll make sure he doesn't overstay, she said softly. As Darren followed her inside, the massive doors closed behind them with a resonant clang. He leaned closer and whispered, "Your dad's charming." She glanced at him sideways. If by charming you mean considering whether to dismember you, then yes. Good to know we're bonding. Humans, she murmured, shaking her head. So strange. Dinner was an ordeal. The Vare dining hall was a cathedral of glass and flame, every surface reflecting molten light. Servants glided silently between the tables, placing dishes that smoked faintly from internal heat. Darren eyed the nearest platter, a slab of meat glowing faintly blue. So, this still moving or just very fresh? Lasara answered primly, it is seared in plasma glaze to preserve flavor. Fancy talk for cooked with jet fuel. Her tail twitched. You mock our cuisine. I mock everything equally. It's my charm. She blinked, processing. You believe mockery is charming? He smiled. Depends on who you're sitting with. Her eyes softened slightly. You are peculiar, Darren Cole. Best compliment I've had all week. Later, as they walked through the balcony garden, warm air rippling with faint ozone, Lasara glanced out toward the crimson horizon. You should not have come, she said quietly. Maybe, but you didn't exactly make it easy to forget you. Her wings shifted, a faint shimmer along their edges. My father will not approve. Then I'll just have to win him over. She turned to him, incredulous. You intend to court me? Is that what they call it here? Yes. Then yeah, I guess I do. She stared for a long time, and for the first time since meeting her, Darren saw her look uncertain. You are either very brave or very foolish. He grinned. Why not both? The sound of distant thunder rolled across the sky, not natural thunder. The estate alarms flared crimson. Lasara's expression hardened. That sound, pirate skiffs in atmosphere. Darren's hand was already on his sidearm. Guess dinner's over. The night sky above Dravith Prime tore open in streaks of flame as pirate skiffs breached the upper atmosphere, their hulls glowing red from the entry burn. Distant explosions flared across the city's spires as defense batteries roared to life. Stay close, Darren ordered, scanning the horizon. Lasara's pupils slit to narrow gold slivers. They are after trade vessels. My father's estate will be secondary. Yeah. He glanced toward the sky, where a burning skiff veered directly toward the cliffs. Looks pretty primary to me. The impact shook the ground, scattering shards of molten glass. The estate's guards rushed toward the perimeter, energy lances flaring. Darren grabbed Lasara's arm and pulled her down behind a marble parapet as debris rained past. Who are they? Outworld scavengers, she said, voice tight. They raid merchant lanes near the fringe, desperate and rabid. Desperate, I can handle. Rabid, we'll see. He pulled a compact carbine from under his jacket, old habit, military issue, collapsible. Lasara blinked at the weapon. You carry arms into my home? Lady, I carry arms into the shower. Her tail flicked in a way that was almost exasperated. The first pirates breached the courtyard, a ragged mix of scaled and cybernetic scavengers. Their armor looked patchwork, their movements jittery from stim overuse. One spotted them and raised a crude plasma rifle. Darren fired once. The shot hit clean through the shoulder joint, sending the arm spinning into the air. The pirate dropped screaming. Lasara stared. You maimed him. He was trying to kill you. I call that balanced. More came. Darren ducked behind the stonework, fired 3 bursts in quick succession, each one precise, efficient. Years of Black Ops training surfaced without thought, muscle memory, and cold rhythm. He moved with the kind of calm that terrified men who thought themselves fearless. Lasara crouched beside him, her throat flaring faintly with heat. You fight like one who has seen too much war. Old habits, he muttered, swapping magazines. Besides, I'm out of practice. My usual fights involve wrenching bolts, not skulls. She blinked at his phrasing. That is very human. Thanks, I think. A pirate leapt from the balcony above, blade raised. Darren pivoted, grabbed him midair, and used his momentum to slam him into the floor. The impact cracked the tile. See, he said, brushing dust off his sleeve. Still got it. Lasara's expression shifted between horror and admiration. You are unervingly competent. That's one way to flirt. The battle spread across the estate. Explosions rocked the hallways as guards and raiders clashed. Lasara stood tall now, regal fury in her gaze, and her throat began to glow. Darren backed up a step. Just for reference, are you about to breathe fire? Incendiary plasma, she corrected. Yes. Okay. Just try not to aim that at me. She unleashed a brilliant wave of molten energy across the nearest wall. The pirates on the far side disintegrated in a flash of white heat. Darren whistled low. Remind me not to argue with you. Together, they fought their way through the halls, she searing through groups, he handling the flanks with precision shots and efficient brutality. At last, they burst into the grand hall. A pirate leader stood there, towering and heavily augmented, dragging a wounded guard across the marble floor. His cybernetic arm crackled with energy as he turned. Pretty how's you got here, the pirate sneered. Shame to burn it. Darren stepped forward, weapon raised. Go ahead. I'll save you the trouble of dying later. The pirate lunged. Darren sidestepped, firing once into the exposed joint at the base of the metal arm. Sparks exploded and the limb went dead. The second shot caught the pirate in the leg. He fell with a roar, reaching for a grenade. Darren didn't hesitate. He kicked the grenade away, tackled the pirate, and slammed the butt of his rifle across his head with a sharp crack. The pirate went limp. Lasara watched in stunned silence. You could have killed him. Would have ruined the floor. Her lips twitched, the faintest smile breaking through her composure. You are infuriating. Thanks. I practice. The estate alarms finally fell silent. The smoke cleared, leaving the courtyard scorched but standing. Guards moved through the wreckage, gathering the wounded. Lasara's father emerged from the upper hall, his gaze sweeping the damage. Then it settled on Darren. You fought, he said. Would have been rude not to, Darren replied. The elder approached slowly. You protected my daughter. Seems like the decent thing to do. There was a pause, long, heavy, and filled with unspoken judgment. Then the draconian lord inclined his head, just slightly. My gratitude, human. Lasara blinked, startled. Father. It would appear, he said carefully, that this one possesses honor and capability. Darren grinned. See? We're already bonding. The elder gave him a look that might have melted iron, but didn't argue further. Days later, the estate was under repair. Lasara found Darren in the hangar bay, examining his shuttle. You're leaving, she said quietly. For a bit. Figure I should give your dad time to forget how much he dislikes me. She stepped closer, eyes soft. He no longer dislikes you. Oh? I didn't notice the parade. He respects you. That is rare. He turned to face her. And you? She hesitated. I find you confusing, irreverent, unpredictable, and appealing. He smiled. So we're making progress. She reached out, her clawed hand brushing his. You risked your life for me. Would have been bad manners not to. Her wings fluttered slightly, a draconian gesture somewhere between a laugh and a sigh. You truly do not understand your effect, do you? Not unless you explain it slow. Her gaze deepened, molten gold against human brown. Then allow me to show you. Darren didn't move as Lasara leaned closer, her scales shimmering softly in the dim hangar light. The faint heat radiating from her skin brushed his, the air between them humming like charged plasma. I should warn you, she said quietly, draconian bonding is permanent. Permanent like marriage, he asked, tone teasing but eyes serious. Deeper. It is both vow and fusion of essence. Once bound, there is no separation, not by distance, not by time. He considered that, then nodded slowly. Guess it's a good thing I don't do things halfway. Her breath hitched, a sound caught between surprise and a laugh. You are very certain. Spent half my life jumping out of orbit without a chute, he said. Falling for someone's the easy part. Lasara studied him for a long moment, her tail curling once behind her. Then she extended a hand, palm up, claws retracted. A faint glow pulsed beneath her scales, and a low, harmonic vibration filled the air. This gesture, she said softly, is an invitation. If accepted, our lives intertwine. He took her hand without hesitation. The glow flared, wrapping around their fingers like liquid light. For a heartbeat, Darren felt everything, the heat of her heartbeat, the faint static hum of her mind, the alien yet familiar rush of emotion that wasn't entirely his. Then the light faded, leaving a soft crimson mark across the back of his hand, a mirrored echo of the symbol glowing faintly on hers. Lasara blinked, her pupils dilated slightly. It is done. That was something, he murmured. Kind of like getting married and electrocuted at the same time. She tilted her head. Your metaphors confuse me. They confuse everyone. Her smile, this time, was full and real. Then I will learn to understand them. Weeks later, they traveled together through the trade lanes, her ship retrofitted with Darren's practical upgrades and his sarcastic labeling system. Lasara had never met a human who swore at machinery so often or so creatively. You threaten the engine daily, she observed one morning. Does it improve performance? Absolutely, he said. Fear keeps the parts aligned. She blinked. I do not believe engines experience fear. Then they've never worked for me. Her laughter, rare, musical, slightly raspy, filled the cockpit. He'd do just about anything to hear it again. They visited outposts, ferried small cargo runs, and turned more than a few heads, the dragon-blooded aristocrat and the scruffy ex-marine pilot. Lasara adapted quickly, her noble precision tempered by growing humor, while Darren learned that draconian bluntness could be disarmingly honest. One evening, during a quiet drift over the silver rings of Epsilon Gara, she leaned back in her seat. You conceal much, Darren Cole. Habit, he said. It's flared across the city spire. You pretend poverty. Yet your account still holds vast resources. He smirked. Guess the secret's out. Why hide wealth? Because people change when they know. You saw me as a mechanic, not a banker. Lasara's gaze softened. I saw you as someone real. He looked out the viewport. Then I'm glad I met you before the secret got out. Months passed. They became inseparable, two travelers whose banter turned heads and whose teamwork saved lives. Word of their defense of the Vera state spread quietly across Dravatha's noble circles, and even Lasara's father, proud and wary, began to acknowledge the human who had defied pirates with nothing but grit and a carbine. When the invitation finally came, Darren almost didn't believe it. Warehouse requests your presence for formal bonding ceremony. He stared at the message, then grinned. Well, guess we're doing this for real. Lasara arched a brow. You sound uncertain. Not uncertain. Just surprised your father didn't add under heavy supervision. He considered it, she admitted. I discouraged the idea. The bonding reception on Dravath Prime was unlike anything Darren had ever seen. The grand hall blazed with light, pillars of molten crystal rose toward vaulted ceilings. Draconian nobles in shimmering attire watched curiously as the human groom adjusted his collar, trying not to look like he belonged in a maintenance bay instead of a royal ceremony. Lasara stood beside him, radiant in pale gold, wings folded elegantly behind her. When their hands met under the ceremonial flame, the mark on their skin ignited briefly in shared light, two beings bound not by species, but by choice. Her father approached afterward, regal and grave. You have proven yourself beyond doubt, he said quietly. Your courage honors my daughter and my house. Darren inclined his head. Means a lot, sir. The elder's mouth curved in what might have been the faintest smile. Do not make me regret it. No promises, Darren said, grinning. But I'll try. Lasara's laugh, soft and genuine, cut through the tension like sunlight. Later, as they drifted together on the balcony overlooking the glowing city, Lasara rested her head lightly against his shoulder. "Do humans ever tire of adventure?" she asked. "Not the good kind," he said. "And with you? I doubt I'll ever get the chance." She lifted her gaze, molten eyes catching the starlight. "Then let us find trouble together." He smirked. "You drive a hard bargain, Lady Vere." "I drive well," she replied, perfectly serious. He laughed, and the sound echoed over the crimson horizon, two souls from different worlds, bonded in flame and laughter, ready for whatever chaos the stars threw next.